What is the Nag Hammadi Library? In December 1945, near the town of Nag Hammadi in Upper Egypt, a peasant farmer named Muhammad Ali al-Saman was digging for fertilizer at the base of a cliff called the Jabal al-Tarif. His shovel struck something hard. Buried in the dry earth was a sealed clay jar, almost a meter tall, its mouth stoppered with bitumen. Inside were 13 leather-bound papyrus codices, some of them crumbling, all of them ancient. He did not know it then, but he had just made one of the most important archaeological discoveries of the 20th century. These books had been buried for over 1,500 years. They contained texts that the early Christian church had tried to destroy, writings so dangerous to orthodox doctrine that merely possessing them could have meant death. And now, by accident, they had resurfaced in the Egyptian desert. The Nag Hammadi Library, as it came to be known, is a collection of 52 texts written in Coptic, the last form of the ancient Egyptian language. The codices date to the 4th century, though the original Greek texts they were translated from are much older, some reaching back to the 2nd century or even earlier. They were likely buried by monks from the nearby monastery of St. Pachomius, possibly in response to a letter from Bishop Athanasius of Alexandria in 367 CE, which ordered the destruction of all non-canonical Christian writings. The texts are diverse. They include gospels, apocalypses, dialogues, prayers, philosophical treatises, and creation myths. But they share a common thread. They represent voices that were silenced. These are the scriptures of the Gnostics, the Scythians, the Valentinians, and other groups that early Christianity deemed heretical and worked systematically to erase from history. The most famous text in the collection is the Gospel of Thomas. Unlike the canonical Gospels, Thomas contains no narrative, no miracles, no crucifixion, no resurrection. It is simply a list of 114 sayings attributed to Jesus, introduced only by the words, "These are the hidden words that the living Jesus spoke." Some of these sayings parallel the canonical Gospels closely. Others are radically different. "If you bring forth what is within you," says Jesus in Thomas, "what you bring forth will save you. If you do not bring forth what is within you, what you do not bring forth will destroy you." The Apocryphon of John is perhaps the most important mythological text in the library. It presents an elaborate cosmology, the unknowable God, the emanation of divine beings called aeons, the fall of Sophia, and the birth of the demiurge, a blind creator god who fashions the material world in ignorance. Humanity, in this telling, is a prison of flesh encasing a spark of the divine, and salvation comes through gnosis, through remembering what we truly are. The Gospel of Philip reads less like a gospel and more like a collection of theological reflections. It discusses sacraments, the nature of truth and illusion, and the relationship between Christ and Mary Magdalene, whom it describes as his companion and the one he kissed often. It is this text that fueled centuries of speculation about their relationship. The Gospel of Truth, attributed to the Valentinian teacher Valentinus, is a meditation on the nature of ignorance and knowledge. It describes the material world as a nightmare produced by ignorance of the Father, and awakening as the moment when one realizes that the nightmare was never real. Since the deficiency came into being because the Father was not known, it reads, the moment the Father is known, the deficiency will no longer exist. Thunder Perfect Mind is unlike anything else in the collection. It is a poem spoken by a feminine divine figure who declares herself in paradoxes. I am the first and the last. I am the honored one and the scorned one. I am the whore and the holy one. I am the wife and the virgin. Its origin is uncertain, its meaning debated, but its power is undeniable. The Treatise on the Resurrection is a short letter arguing that the resurrection is not a future physical event, but a present spiritual reality. The author tells his student, do not think the resurrection is an illusion. It is no illusion, but it is truth. It is more fitting to say that the world is an illusion. Other texts in the library include the Hypostasis of the Archons, which retells the Genesis creation story from a Gnostic perspective, casting the God of Genesis as a tyrant and the serpent as a liberator. The Exegesis on the Soul describes the soul as a feminine being who falls from heaven into the body, where she is abused until she repents and is rescued by her heavenly bridegroom. On the Origin of the World provides an alternative creation account that draws on Jewish, Christian, Greek, and Egyptian traditions. The discovery of these texts transformed our understanding of early Christianity. Before Nag Hammadi, the Gnostics were known almost entirely through the writings of their enemies, men like Irenaeus, Tertullian, and Epiphanius, who wrote to refute and ridicule them. Now, for the first time, these silenced voices could speak for themselves. What emerged was not the crude heresy that the Church Fathers had described, but a sophisticated and varied tradition that asked fundamental questions. Why does suffering exist? Is the visible world all there is? Can knowledge liberate the soul? These are not the questions of fools or charlatans. They are the questions of seekers, and the Nag Hammadi Library preserves their answers, buried in the Egyptian earth for 15 centuries, waiting to be found.